Hi, I'm Beth Berry. I'm Vice President of Business Development for Real Green Systems in Walled Lake, Michigan. Today, I'm broadcasting live from my home office of Indianapolis, Indiana. And I have the distinct pleasure of my guest, Bob Mann. Bob, you are located in Massachusetts today. Give us an introduction and a little background, if you would.
Oh, sure. I'm Bob Mann. I'm the Director of State and Local Government Relations at the National Association of Landscape Professionals, and it's been a very interesting time to be in a position that I'm in. We've been very busy dealing with this coronavirus crisis, and I'm happy to join you today. And I just want to make sure that we're about 1,000 miles apart, so we're good there. I've got my Purell right here, so we can.
Nice.
Yeah, so we're all set and ready to go.
That's excellent. Before we dig into the business of the day, and because I love football and because I'm just striving for some form of humor, it's those little snippets that are keeping.
I know it's coming, Beth.
You know what's coming. You know what's coming. I'm from Indianapolis. You're from Boston, Massachusetts area. So what is, in addition to the COVID crisis, what's going on with the Tom Brady crisis in Patriot country?
Well, I just want to reassure you and the rest of America that yes, Tom Brady has gone to Tampa, and it looks like the reign of terror is over. But I promise you that Boston fans will just be as arrogant and insufferable as they always have been. And you can lay that. It's in our nature, and we owe it to America to stay that way.
Now I have to hate two teams. Do you know how hard that is? It takes so much. If he would take Bill Belichick with him, I could get over it and be a Patriot fan. But as a card-carrying Peyton Manning fan, it's just not going to happen.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. It just blew me away.
We can long for the day when that's all you and I have to talk about over a beer.
That's true. That is true.
First of all, I would like to thank you personally, your colleague Andrew Bray, and everyone at NALP for your tireless, and I do mean tireless, round the clock, 7 days a week, support of our industry. Without the work that all of you have done, many of our customers and many of those in the green industry wouldn't be going to work today. And that's not an overstatement, and you know it, and you're all very modest. But first of all, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for everything you do. And you don't fix the roof on the day it's raining. This is a culmination of years and years of industry relationships. And thank you very much for everything you're doing.
It's our pleasure to do that. As you know, I'm a lifelong member of the industry. Having owned my own lawn care company for a long time, worked in a number of others, and I love the business. I love the people in the business. Otherwise, I would have left a long time ago. And I know that people are hurting out there right now, and talking to a lot of members and non-members alike, and even people that are not members of our association that call and ask, and you feel an instant camaraderie with them as if they've been your friends for a long time. So it's a remarkable industry that we're privileged to be part of. That's for sure.
We are making things beautiful one day at a time. I was thinking today, of course, like you, I travel significantly, about 48 weeks last year, and looking at the calendar, of course, there's nothing to do in the coming weeks. But I sure hope we're going to get together this year at Renewal and Remembrance. And the legislative days are going to take on a whole new field this year, aren't they?
That's true, and a new significance as well. I think that we're going to have a long laundry list of things that became very apparent when this crisis descended upon us, that either we really liked and appreciated, we can find those, but also that we found very frustrating. And I'm sure that we're not alone in our industry. I'm sure that every industry has concerns that need to be addressed, so that we can, the next time that we have a crisis like this, we respond in a much more organized and effective manner. And, I know that we're not alone in our industry with the amount of pain that, we're going through. And we're at this, and at the same time, we can't forget that there are people out there suffering from the coronavirus. Either the stories are just horrific, and but there has to be a conversation about how we're going to to tackle these things in the future. So we look forward to that, and it'll be wonderful just to see everyone and be out there in the wicked hot sunshine of Washington in the middle of the summer. It'll feel good this year, won't it?
It sure will. So let's start with the basics. If you're from outside the green industry, like my Aunt Sharon, and she's looking at my Facebook post, and we're going to get into the specific languaging, documents, and resources you all have provided to the industry. But what is your response when someone says to you, is it safe for the lawn and landscape industry to be out and about doing their business right now, regardless of what the guidance on essential workforce says? Tell us what you think.
Right. I think that what we've realized early on is that we're using the word essential in a way that people are not familiar with. And I think that word, we took on that term because that's kind of the term that the government uses. And, but if you dig further back into the guidance documents that the federal government puts out, they don't use that terminology. They use terms that deal with infrastructure and how the economy, but the economy is put together. So I think that we're going to have to figure out better messaging when it comes to that. I think that we understand instinctively the benefits that landscape contractors bring, to the environment, to safety. At this time of year, landscapers are out in the landscape, cleaning up debris. And I was reading something by Dr. Frank Rossi of Cornell. He puts out a weekly newsletter, and he was talking about making sure that leaves and other debris are cleaned out of landscapes, because they serve as harboring as harbors for ticks and that type of thing. And that gets into the entire health aspect of what we do. Many of our members flea, insect, tick control, mosquito control programs have a profound effect on the health of our customers going forward, and those things need to be taken care of in a organized fashion. You just can't show up and start doing this type of work. You have to be programmatic. You have to do it in an organized fashion. Let's put it that way. And this and many other instances shows that we need to be out there protecting our customers' investment, our customers' health, managing their landscapes. I think it's pretty clear, and I think that the federal government also agreed with that when they revised their memorandum, the Department of Homeland Security, over this past weekend, where they included landscapes as part of the essential infrastructure. Going forward, we've had a lot of success having that guidance be used by the states in order to come up with a list of essential workers. So there are states that it's not working, and it doesn't look like it's going to. Michigan, Minnesota are two. New York is back in flux again. We thought we were all set in New York, but they had a document out there that the word on the street is that they've rescinded it. We're still working to find out exactly what that means. But for the rest of the country, there's flexibility in there. It's different. And so, we would invite you to come to the NALP website and go use our resources to look and see what individual states have decided to do. We have a page that rounds that information up, gives you a summary of what the latest and greatest is coming from the states, where to go for the resources. You can read the governor's order or the guidance documents that go along with each one of the states for yourself, and then make up your own mind whether or not that's what you want to do.
And give me some of the basics. So I have had many of our Real Green customers say to me, well, Homeland Security and CISA.gov document would suggest that landscapers are essential. Thank you guys very much. But tell us how state and local governments can actually trump that.
Right. Now, this is a great example of federalism, because the states are in charge of the response to the crisis, within their own states. They can, if they wish to, follow federal guidance, and many of them have. But the states themselves, the governor is responsible, for coming up with the policy. And you'll see that there's a lot of variation as to what the governors have decided to allow. So that's why it's important that that you know specifically what's happening, and we're here to help as well. If there's a question that you have that if you're not clear on what that is, we're happy to reach out to us, and we're happy to help you out with that.
Question for you. It is about 1 o'clock on Wednesday, April 1st. And by the time we complete this, the world could be very different. But New York has been back and forth. Michigan has been pretty consistent since last Thursday. And Minnesota is in and out. So, and we refer to the website NALP has up for the latest and greatest, and you guys do an unbelievable job keeping that up to date. What would you suggest to a state like Florida that doesn't quite yet have an executive order? What type of preparedness would you issue to landscape providers in states where there is no executive order yet, but it could be coming? What would you suggest?
Well, we have resources already on our website that you can you can download for yourself, documents that you can carry with you, that if someone were to approach you, whether it's a law enforcement person or a customer or a neighbor or something like that, that you can show them that, first of all, we believe that we're on solid legal footing to be out here, as an essential service. Second, we have to be mindful that, this is not ordinary times, and you have to be mindful of, what you're doing while you're out there. And that includes social distancing. I've heard companies that have instituted policies where only there's just a driver in the truck and everybody else uses their personal vehicle to go from site to site. Other companies that have 2 people in a 2-door truck, and if they have a 4-door truck, they have 3 people or whatever it happens to be. But things like that, where you've given some consideration as to how to keep people apart. Having soap and water on the truck so that you can wash your hands, the gloves and masks, whatever is necessary in that regard. Following not only the CDC recommendations for proper PPE, but also the state health departments have their own. So these are things that you would want to spend some time reviewing and familiarizing yourself with prior to going back out on the road. You don't want to be out, just completely defying or whatever policies have been put into place, but also just not looking like you care. It's at this point, it really is a privilege to be able to go out and get your work done. It's very important for us to get our work done, but as we saw in New York, it's a two-way street. You could have that ripped away from you if you're not careful with how you handle that privilege.
That's interesting. Larry Ryan from Ryan Lawn and Tree was my guest last Friday, industry icon, and Kansas has been pretty fortunate in terms of in Missouri being able to continue with the work they're doing. But he noted the absolute welcoming spirit of consumers. Now, you're always going to have some who are like, why are you here? What are you doing? But for those that should be out, I know when I had to go to my local grocery store, I thanked every single employee I saw. Thank you so much for doing what you're doing. And they're seeing very much the same thing, that there are more people at home. Obviously, there's more people taking staycations. There are more families where the only place they have to go is outside and feel like the safest place is outside, and view what our industry is doing as enhancing that the only space that they still have to go to. So I think that's been very positive for the industry as well. Have you seen, Bob, any delineation in terms of the orders where they would cite that commercial or business properties are in play, but residential is not? Because if you think about critical infrastructure, what's going to happen in most of the areas of the United States if mowers aren't out, median strips, hospital areas, and the additional health concerns that Zika and Lyme is going to occur. Is there any delineation that would suggest if you are a green industry provider, you're able to serve that critical infrastructure?
I was shaking my head no, but I'm just starting to think that, there have been some instances where we've seen people say, or governments say, yes, you can go ahead and do your thing, but you can't do spring cleanups. Or what? I mean, that's what we do, and that's part of the health benefit that we bring to the table, is being able to do that type of work. So those are still topics that need to be resolved. But you're exactly right. I mean, you need to, all these things need to be done, and they can't just wait until July 4th to do them. And the coronavirus, as bad as it is not the only thing that we're dealing with in the landscape. And I'm sure that not only you, but everyone else that's listening has noticed the ever increasing list of pathogens that we encounter in the landscape that impact not only landscapers but just the public at large. And it's a daunting task to keep up with all that stuff. So we will notice that we'll have ramifications beyond coronavirus if we're not careful to keep up with everything else that needs to be cared for.
It seems like 6 months ago, but it was less than a month ago, I had the privilege of attending the NALP Workforce Summit. Yep. And long ago, Bob, our biggest problem was finding enough unemployed people to do the job that we needed them to do. And it was fantastic content.
Yeah.
And your leader, Britt Wood, the CEO, had suggested when I first met him that anytime we have an event, everyone should leave with some aha moment. And your colleague, Andrew Bray, suggested at the end of this, my aha moment is, in terms of attracting those that we want to serve, the green industry, was to use some very specific terminology. And he had no idea what he was saying this day, but it certainly suits not just recruitment, but the way we serve the industry. We really are in environmental management. And that broad term was cast on March 4th, that the way in which we go about recruiting individuals, it's about, and some of it was generational in terms of those that we're trying to attract, but I think certainly now more than ever, those were prophetic words, because it really is environmental management.
Yeah.
As opposed to landscaping. And I think that term that we've all used and debated for so long, to some merely suggest that we're going to put a new hedge in front of your pool. And is that really essential, as opposed, as you know, to the broad term and the individual service lines that fall under that, whether it's chemical, lawn care, mowing, maintenance, irrigation, all the piece parts that manage the environment, both residentially and business. But I think it's important as an industry that we certainly expedite incorporating that terminology this time now more than ever, maybe.
Yeah, those are excellent points, and I think that there's going to be a lot of that going on in the next couple of years as a result of what we're enduring right now. Just rethinking how all of these pieces fit together, and it'll be a welcome thing to do, rather than just kind of hanging out here at home and connecting on the internet. But these are wonderful questions, and I'm excited to get going on that type of thing.
So speaking of the good old days, if I had asked you 30 days ago, pre-COVID really, in terms of how we thought it would impact Americans in our industry, what were some of the hot points that you were going to be working on this year on behalf of our industry that still, when this passes, will have an impact?
Well, like you, I do a lot of traveling, and this week I was supposed to be down in Dallas, Texas, to attend a meeting of the National Turfgrass Foundation. And what we were going to be looking at were the low input turf grasses, and the absolutely incredible progress that group has made.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm a 30-year veteran. What is a low input turf grass?
Well, that's a turf grass that can put up with a lot less water, can put up with a lot more heat, is much more durable. I had the great privilege of attending the International Turfgrass Research Conference. I think it was 2 years ago, maybe it's 3 now. Time goes by so quickly, but it was at Rutgers, and they do a lot of turf grass breeding there at the Adelphia farm, and part of the conference was to do a field trip, and I just couldn't get enough of it. And there were just it's a 100-acre site if you've ever been, and it's wall-to-wall turf. Well, not all turf grass, but it's almost wall-to-wall turf grass, and it's researching how to to bring turf grasses to market that solve we spend so much time wrestling with the grasses that we have, at least in the northern states, through the middle of the summer, with all the things that that lay them low. And they have, at least to my mind, my observation, they have solved a lot of these problems. It's just a matter of finishing the trials and getting these things out into the marketplace and getting them adopted. And one of the things that we want to do is to forge alliances between the researchers and the landscapers, so that we can work towards adopting these things and championing them. I don't know about you, but I would love to be able to have a lawn that in the middle of the summer was doing every bit as good as it would in the middle of the spring. So I was very excited to participate in that. Of course, not there, but we hope to be able to do that later on this summer. Of course, being in Dallas, it'll probably be a little bit harder than it would have been today, but there's a lot of that kind of thing going on. That NALP is reaching out and forging alliances with groups that we hadn't allied ourselves with in the past, or we wouldn't think that we would ally ourselves with. We've been working with a group called NASDA, the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture. These are the either the commissioners or secretaries or chair of agriculture in each one of the states, and the alliances that we have been able to form just in that one group have paid off incredible dividends in this past couple of weeks. We've been able to, to speak with the people that know us through that association, and our interaction with them as we, as we advocate on behalf of the landscape industry. There's another group called TIPSA, it's the Pesticide Stewardship Alliance. They love having landscapers there because it's a completely different group of stakeholders that has a completely different set of needs, wants, and desires from the agricultural sector, and it gives a whole new perspective on things. So we have a long list of groups, all with an acronym that is easy to say and hard to say, or whatever you want to call it, but we've been spending time and money and expense to develop develop relationships with, because we really need to make sure that our members have representation all over the political map.
You just mentioned membership, and I covet my position as member chair and look forward to working with the new leadership this year.
Yeah.
When you're selling anything, and whether it's software or lawn care or memberships, you look for what are the key features that mean the most. And certainly the work that all of you have done this year, it's fairly indisputable that being a member of NALP certainly pays off. Talk a little bit about state associations. Does NALP partner with state associations? And if you're talking to green industry owners, in terms of preparedness, you were able to pick up the phone, you and Andrew, and reach out to, like you mentioned, the Department of Ag. I'm able to pick up the phone because I have about 4,000 friends, at least on LinkedIn, in the industry who are industry leaders like yourself. Tell us about how the states fit in, how we should reach out to our states, and also how to identify within our local political ecosystem that would be beneficial during these times.
Let me start by answering that. I got into the industry in 1985, as soon as I got out of college, and it was very soon thereafter that it was pointed out to me that if I was to exist in this business, for political reasons, that I had better join my state association. And I'm in Massachusetts, so I joined the Massachusetts Association of Lawn Care Professionals, MALCAP. So I was one of the charter members, and I've been president twice, I think it is. But it was that, and joining, well, at the time was the Professional Lawn Care Association of America, were instrumental in ensuring that I knew what I needed to know in order to have a successful business, have a successful career, and in doing so, advocate on behalf of both lawn care and landscape operators, across the country. These things are essential, and I think that that's one of the things that dealing with the coronavirus has pointed out, is that by yourself you don't have much of a voice, but if you join together with an association, your voice is much stronger. And not only that, the resources that are brought to bear to help out your individual business are essential. I mean, you can't being able to understand what the landscape looks like out there politically, whether you're able to work or not able to work, navigating whether or not you can get a business loan to carry you over, just the camaraderie alone. I mean, just in talking to people over the last 2 or 3 weeks, people that I have known for almost all the way back to 1985. We're all getting kind of old at this point, but you do forge friendships that span the entirety of your career, and those things can be very, very important. I strayed a little bit. What was where were we headed with that? The state associations. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Almost every state has a state association that deals with landscaping in one way or another. If you don't know what your state association is, by all means, reach out to me. I'll be happy to put you in touch with them. These state associations are just indispensable lifeblood. The things that we couldn't possibly do at the national level, our state partners do with aplomb every day. And I'm fortunate to be a member of the listserv group that they have, and they have been emailing each other back and forth almost 24 hours a day since this crisis came to the fore, and trying to not only keep each other informed as to what's happening in different states, but also helping each other to navigate kind of a cold, cruel world out there right at the moment. So they're a wonderful, wonderful bunch, and I don't know what we would do without them. I know that here in Massachusetts we have wonderful leaders, and that's exactly the same thing across the country. They're very, very adept association managers, professionals. They're absolutely professional. Can't say enough about them.
Thank you. Let's talk about Michigan for a moment, and we'll just use Michigan as an example where we've experienced difficulty as an industry getting out the door, along with construction there. So certainly the governor has been very thoughtful. Michigan has now climbed to number 4 on the COVID list. I have a lot of friends in Michigan. We have a lot of customers in Michigan. The green industry is very strong in Michigan, and I applaud everything they're doing. And so it's a difficult sometimes conversation to have when you say, okay, we recognize the health risk. We also know we're the original social distancing industry, and we also know the additional health risks that will come with this. So in addition to staying close to your website and understanding what's going on, would you recommend that business owners in Michigan reach out to their local legislators to share your information and ask them to encourage the governor? And if so, how do they locate? They can obviously figure out who their local legislators are, but do they also reach out to the Department of Ag and their local association?
At this point, it's what you've mentioned. It sounds very logical, and but I think that we need to sort of step back a little bit and consider that what we may be doing at this point may be counterproductive, and that we should channel our efforts to get this problem solved through the state associations and through the contacts that we have, and through, through gathering that way, because when it really comes down to is that, the state associations have the contacts, you were mentioning the contacts that you had, but, when you get to the state association level, these are the things that they do every day. They use contacts and relationships that they've built, not only with legislators, the governor's office, but the staff people. They have the numbers they know who to pick up the phone and call. So when the problem is that you can actually make the problem worse. If you keep asking questions, sometimes you're going to get answers back that you don't like. And we've noticed this a couple of times, and this is something that Andrew Bray has brought up with me. This, be careful of the questions that you ask. You may not like the answers you get. And it's sort of Andrew's a lawyer, and that's one of the things that lawyers are taught. So don't ask questions you don't know the answers to. I think that my reaction is to follow the guidance of the state associations as they tackle this. So if you're unsure of who that person is or who the contact is, regardless of what state it is, please contact me and I'll put you in touch with that person so that you can channel your efforts through the state association to get the answers that you need.
You are my go-to person in terms of just about everything green related. Two last questions for you here.
Yeah.
One, I phoned you maybe around March 5th, which again feels like years ago, to talk about supply chain, and you directed me to some incredibly resourceful folks who at that time did not see issues in terms of lawn care, landscape operators acquiring materials we needed in the United States, but the world was much different then. Have you heard anything to the contrary in terms of supply chain that would impact the industry once we're back up in full force?
Specifically, no, but I know enough that my knowledge of that portion of the supply chain is limited. But if you start talking to your suppliers, this is something that they're doing 24/7. They understand, the ebb and flow of how all these, these different products come together. It's not just a bag of fertilizer, it's all the components that go into that bag of fertilizer and where they're sourced from. Many of these things are, sourced from overseas, and, we're going to see tremendous disruptions in supply chains, and from places and events that we really don't understand. I know that China is also a very large supplier of urea, and we use a tremendous amount of urea here in the United States on lawns, not only lawns, but in agriculture. And even though we may not be directly getting urea from China, being sort of a fungible commodity, anytime you have a disruption, it's going to alter not only availability of the products, but also the prices you pay for it. So, and there was a point in time right around 2000 that we were having tremendous trouble with, with the supply of the individual components, urea being one of them, and prices were shocked quite significantly and very, very suddenly, and very, very difficult to to absorb that within your business. So if you do not have a really good working relationship with your supplier, now is a great time to work on that relationship. And not only that, but to take the time to begin understanding exactly how the fertilizer and the pesticide markets work, and so that you can prepare yourself, for the future. Because really, right now, it's an unwritten book, and you're going to have to pay very close attention to what's coming, and to be able to absorb the changes.
And lastly, we have customers in states where there is no executive order in terms of restrictions, and we have customers in states where there's an essential order, but they are pointing to the CISA document and they've been out treating lawns. And of course, everything is so dynamic, and the local law enforcement, do they know what you and I know about this? Of course they don't, and they're paid to protect the public health, thank goodness. But we have customers who are being stopped out and about and being questioned. And those owners have used the NALP documents. They've used the CISA document to ensure that their associates are up to speed on all of that. Are there any other resources or talking points for those that are questioned while they're out and about doing their business right now?
The documents that you really need to have not only available, but to be aware of and find on our website, landscapeprofessionals.org. And right when you open the page up, the coronavirus page will pop right up, first thing. And you can get onto the, once you get onto that particular page, there's a heading for news and resources. There's where you'll find all the documentation. You'll find all of the links, and you can download not only the the letters that we've drawn up, but you can download documents that you can alter or customize for your own purposes, so that you have this stuff ahead of time. And of course, if you're being stopped by law enforcement or whatever that happened to be, you have to be respectful, and just like you're being stopped for speeding or something like that, you have to be respectful and have your stuff ready, and and just kind of ride it out. There are going to be times when you're just going to be told that you have to stop what you're doing and go away, and you have to respect that. There's just no way around it. But at the same time, if you have your documentation in front of you, at least you can explain the the why of why you're there. And I think that's essentially what it comes down to, is you have to be prepared to defend yourself long before anyone ever asks you.
Yes. The last business meeting I attended was the Workforce Summit, and I had the pleasure of going to dinner with Brandon Shepard from Weedman and his wife, and he was remarking on the work that you had done in partnership with NALP and the EPA. And I just like to take a moment, because I don't know that our customers in the industry really understand the links to which you and your team go to ensure we are good community stewards before an event like this. So can you tell us what you did with Weedman and the EPA?
Well, that was another organization that we found that we did not have a good working relationship with, the EPA. So we began meeting with them, and initially it was just conference calling and just exploring what we understood about each other. And what I discovered, I think that Brandon would agree with me, is that they knew everything there was to know about the pesticide products that they register, but they have absolutely no idea what we do with the products once we get them. And and I can understand that. But so we started an effort to begin to educate them about the professional lawn care industry. And maybe 2 years ago, in right around Labor Day, we went to their offices in Crystal City, Virginia, right around, right behind where the Reagan Airport is, and gave them a 90-minute, 2-hour, right in there someplace, presentation on basics, basic lawn care 101, everything that we do, from marketing, sales, the organization of our businesses, how we put together our programs, the different things that we do that are very obvious to us, but they had no idea of any of the things that we did. This past September rather, we got them into a bus and took them on a field trip. So we gathered them up in Crystal City, and we drove them all the way out to Winchester, Virginia, which is almost into West Virginia. It's kind of a long story how that happened, but that was, we brought them up to Brandon Shepard's house, and fortunately he had a place where there's lots of lawn, some privacy, so that we could talk and not be interrupted by people driving by or anything of that nature. And we had roughly 40 EPA scientists out there, and we showed them how how to use a ChemLine gun, how to push a spreader, how a backpack operates, the equipment that we use, the techniques that we use, things that we all understand, but they have no clue, all these different things. And then it was at that point we started to get into some dialogue. They began to see that if you have a ChemLine gun, that it's not some indiscriminate weapon. It's a very elegant tool that you can use to very effectively and accurately place a pesticide fertilizer mixture on a lawn, and not get it all over the place. And I think that was for a lot of them, it was a revelation. They had no idea these things existed. So we went in and sat down and talked with them as a follow-up to that event. And now we're starting to get to the point where when they see us, they know who we are. They want to ask us questions. They want to know what we're doing. They take our input. When we go through the machinations of re-registration of products, when we send them our opinions, we get feedback on that, and it's gratifying work, to be perfectly honest with you. You may have this idea in your mind of what the EPA is like, but they're just regular people just trying to do a regular job, and it's been a very rewarding aspect of working in NALP is to develop that particular relationship.
But that's an excellent example of what the rest of us don't have the time and expertise to do, and how you're protecting the industry. I thank you very much for doing that.
My pleasure.
I don't miss the Friday edition of The Advocate that you publish every week. And it's a roundup of what's going on around the country. Now, I'm a lawn care girl. I'm a geek. But
Yep.
I very much appreciate the insights you bring to us locally. How can folks sign up for that?
Well, I think you might have noticed that this past week's edition was just about as long as War and Peace. There was a lot going on, and Andrew Bray, my boss, wrote a great deal of that, and it's just a wonderful wrap up of everything that's going on politically. And from the perspective of landscapers, it's free to members, by subscription. We don't try to overwhelm people's email boxes. Our marketing people, frown upon that type of thing. So all you need to do is to ask, and we'll be happy to put you on the subscription list.
It's great stuff. Any last words you'd have for us? Any advice, anything we should be aware of?
Well, I think at this point, we're just kind of absorbing the shock of how, what the coronavirus is doing to the nation, to our health, our families being locked up. Basically, we're basically homebound at this point. But I think in the long term, we're not being sent off to war. So, we got to keep things into perspective. We know that, as things warm up, the virus is not going to be able to survive anywhere near as well as it does when it's cold. That we will, come out of this and go back to work, and hopefully we'll be able to absorb the blow of having our businesses impacted. But I think that we just need to sort of just take a deep breath and have faith, and that we'll pull through this. We pulled through a lot of different things over the course of our lifetime. This will be no different.
The real world rewards resilience.
Yes.
Who are you isolated with?
Well, I have two of my three daughters have returned. One was kicked out of college because, well, we're closing, go home. And my middle daughter, who's just finished college and was accepted to grad school, is between two things. And we said, why don't you just come back down here and hang out with us? And so we're two out of three daughters. My third daughter lives up in Boston, with her husband. So they've just sort of isolated themselves in their house with their cat, and we'll get together real soon. How about yourself?
My middle is a firefighter, so I pray for him every day. That's concerning, and he lives on his own. My oldest works in trucking logistics, and he's working round the clock, keeping the grocers supplied. And like you, my youngest was kicked out of IU her senior year. She misses her friends. She misses her friends. She misses commencement. Mark Cuban, who's a alum, is going to plan something special for them. But I encouraged her to pour a beer on the kitchen floor and let it get sticky and walk around so she could feel like she was back in Bloomington.
Yeah, plus the smell. I mean, you have to have the smell of rotting beer. Yeah. Part of the college experience.
It is. One last question for you. What are you doing the evening of April 20th? It's a Monday night.
I don't know.
Well, make a note that ESPN is replaying the top Monday Night Football games. It's the one where Peyton goes to Foxborough and pulls out a W. So if you're free, I know you're going to want to see that.
How is that being how is that one of the great games? I'm a little
One of the
confused.
top 6, and they've pulled it out of the archives.
I,
You know what? We can do this again. We can have a beer and some popcorn and watch it
I,
together.
I'm a little confused, Beth. I got to be perfectly honest with you.
Hey, Bob, thank you so much for your help. I really appreciate it, as do all of our customers and green industry friends. And I'm not going
My
to take up
pleasure.
any more of your time because somebody's probably reaching out to you that's very important.
No, well, no more important than you, Beth. That's for sure. It's always great to talk to you.
Talking to you too. We'll see you soon, friends. Stay safe.
Absolutely. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.